Welcome to the new series of the Football Fun Factory podcast. We've got a new series, a new concept, and I couldn't be more excited to get it going with the first episode today. In the new concept, we will be touching on one subject and asking questions about them. And the subject of this week's podcast is coaching mixed ability groups. So, are you ready, lads?
Ready
for the new series?
Buzzing for the new series.
Fantastic. I've got a question to throw at you now around coaching mixed ability groups. So you are coaching a team with one outstanding individual. How do you challenge them, Johnny?
Cool. Good question. Great question to start the podcast off. I think my answer would be set them individual challenges.
Okay. We'll expand on that in a minute. James?
I would push them up into an older age group.
Controversial. I think what I want to talk about is yours, Johnny. I think you're the winner of that question. Sorry, James.
Great start.
That's fully expected.
Tell me a little bit more.
So I think you can, when you've got mixed abilities and you've got a real range, if you've got one top performer within the group, the best way to challenge them, to keep them engaged, to keep them focused, is to pull them to one side, get down to their level, set them little individual challenges depending on the topic or what you're working on. For me, I think that's a great way of doing it because it doesn't then disrupt the whole group or doesn't impact the whole group, and you can do it on that one-to-one basis. And then the individual challenge can be anything from using their weak foot, limiting their touches, encouraging them to do certain things when they play, so maybe pass the ball more or stay on the ball more, whatever it may be, depending on the topic you're working on. But individual challenges, I think, are a great way to help stretch that individual.
Yeah, just a quick question from me on that. So obviously you're pulling this outstanding individual out to the side, keep offering different challenges. How is that perceived, do you think, by the rest of the group and that outstanding individual themselves?
So I think the way in which I try and coach is it's not unique to that one child. So the individual challenges will help stretch that child and test them and take them on to the next level, but I'll also do the same and try and do the same with every child within the session to make it appropriate for them. So exactly on the other end of the spectrum, I don't know if this is a question later on or not, and I might be shooting myself in the foot, but if you've got a child that may be struggling, you can then set them a slightly different challenge to the rest of the group to make it appropriate for them within the session.
Can we make that real life? Because I think that would be really useful for grassroots coaches listening. So if you were running a session, you've got one outstanding performer and then you've got one child really, really struggling, you're doing a session that is themed on dribbling skills. Every child's got a ball each, they're going through gates. We've got a session called Gate Challenges. We love it.
Yeah, great
so
session.
They go through gates, they've got different challenges. They have to go through with what certain foot, they have to go through to a certain skill, whatever it might be, different challenges to go through the gates. How would you challenge the top performer, the outstanding player, and how would you make it that bit easier potentially for then someone that might be finding it a bit tough?
So I guess it depends on each and every individual, and that's the skill of a coach, isn't it, with regards to what they can see that child responds well to, what type of challenge they need to work on. But if it was in general that they're really good at dribbling, you might then set them a specific challenge or skill to work on as they then come up to the gates. So they've got to do a little round the world or lollipop, whatever you want to call it, step over, scissors, to then beat the gates and then go on to the next one. You could then set them a challenge where maybe they've got to go to different colour gates each time, so they're getting their eyes up. So it's then encouraging them to work on their dribbling skills whilst getting their eyes to the sky. So there's lots of different ways that you can take it, and I guess the skill is of the coach to take it in the direction that best suits those. With regards to the child that's maybe struggling, I think what you can do is take them out of the session for a second and let them watch the rest of the group and maybe try and copy one of their peers and do a bit of peer-to-peer learning there, and then set them a challenge whereby it's based on effort. So I want you to try the hardest that you possibly can within this part of the session.
Just building on that a little bit as well, and then taking that into a match, so a game against other opposition. Like what does that look like then? Because obviously at times the outstanding individual takes it on themselves, and that maybe affects the experience of the other children in the team. So how would it work on a match day?
I think once again it sort of depends on the subject what you're working on, and if it's dribbling. I think one top tip for coaches is that your match day should be an extension of your training. It It shouldn't be that you're training during the week, ready to then try and win on the weekend, and whatever you're doing in training, that should then lead into what you do on a match day. So I think it's probably trying to link in what you've worked on in training, making it an extension of that when it then comes to the games. And then that can be something that continues the theme. So if it is dribbling, then you are still trying to work on those skills and encourage those skills. But I think you can do subtle things by changing the child's position maybe within a pitch. So if they're then a defender and they're working on dribbling that week, well, it's going to be a bit harder because they've got more players in front of them, so they might have to beat one, then pass it on because they get into a congested midfield or whatever it is. So I think you can go down different routes, but I think it's really important to try and link training to then a match.
And when you're planning those sessions and games, is it with that outstanding individual in mind? Because I know we've all worked within academy football where at times it is about sort of the top performers and seeing them progress to hopefully sort of make it through as a professional player. Like within grassroots football, would that be something on your mind to plan sessions, games with that outstanding performer in mind?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you plan a session, coaches will have a list of the children that are going to be at the session. Often then what's on the list doesn't always show up, especially in grassroots. You think you're going to have 12 and that you only get 9. You definitely can plan those sort of individual interventions and ways in which you want to take it in your session. However, because of the fact that not all the children turn up every week and sometimes they don't let you know until the last minute and the challenges involved in that, I think that the best thing to do is try and use a framework. So there's one called STEP, which you basically change different parts of the session. So S stands for space, so you might then change the area that they're working within to provide them a different challenge. So probably having a framework in place that you work from will then make it easier to then make those sort of snap decisions in the moment to challenge the children.
Love it. Can I just say how much I'm enjoying the new format, because we get to talk about football coaching and there's so much interesting stuff, isn't there? There's a collective, I don't know, maybe 30 years experience in the room, maybe more in terms of coaching children football. So I'm absolutely buzzing for question 2.
Okay, you've got one child in your group who's really struggling. How do you make the session enjoyable for them, James?
I would say praise and encouragement.
Good. John?
Nice. I'd go for setting them challenges that relate to effort rather than result.
It's all challenges with you, isn't it? I'm going to go with James as a winner on this one. Expand a little bit, James.
So for me, it's about how children feel. Really important. So no young child wants to feel like they're under pressure, and part of our ethos with coaching is to make a pressure-free environment for children to fall in love with the game. And I think if then there's very little feedback from the sidelines, then it leaves the how a child's doing open to their interpretation and how they feel. If they're getting loads of positive praise from the sidelines, and in fact, sometimes if you lean into a bit more positive praise for someone that might be struggling a little bit, then what that does is it kind of reinforces to the child that actually maybe I'm doing okay. I gave the ball. So for example, if I make a mistake and I give the ball away, but then I get positive praise on my first touch was good, and the coach goes, "Oh, great first touch, James, try again next time," then that actually makes me feel good about something that I did do well, rather than me focusing on the fact that I gave the ball away.
Would it be, obviously you talk about the first touch there, would the praise come more around sort of the attitude, the way that the child's trying, or would it be sort of looking specifically at something that they do well technically and sort of give them the praise about that?
I think it could be both, and it depends on the situation. Another great example would be when somebody had a shot and it goes over the bar. So somebody strikes a ball and goes firing over the bar. One bit of positive praise you give someone is great power in your shot. So rather than focus on the fact that they shot, they missed, they didn't score, if you actually focus on the fact that there was tremendous power within the shot. So it's finding that little element of positivity, and I think it's just an approach to how you approach coaching children football, really.
John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's spot on. I think creating that environment, isn't it? Trying to be as positive as possible, and no matter whether you're a top performer or ultimately really struggling, if you're getting praise from someone that you look up to and the coach and a role model for you, and they're saying well done, then it is going to lift you and make that experience far more enjoyable. So
could there be a downside to that though? So to almost argue against myself a little bit, if then a child's, making a mistake, giving the ball away, and all they're getting from the sideline is positive praise and well done and, oh, great first touch before you gave the ball away, great shot, great power, even though you missed. Is that good, and does that change with different age groups?
I think...
Sorry.
Cool. I thought what you said earlier on, James, about like mixing it up with regards to technical feedback as well as like effort-based feedback, I think is really important. I think when you're trying to lift a child and encourage them and give them that positive feedback, I think it is important to give them effort-based praise, because then ultimately it doesn't become false or fake, and it's not too much sort of like, oh, well done, you shot with loads of power but it's gone miles over, and then ultimately that's all they're focusing on as the result. So if you're then well done for trying your hardest and those types of bits of praise, I think are really good way of still communicating positively, getting your message across without it coming across as too much.
Would it change in terms of like how the child is, even though they're struggling but they're running around, they've got a massive smile on their face, they're enjoying it? Would you still offer it the same and sort of be looking to praise like that, or because you can see that they're still having a fantastic experience, would that make it any different?
I think it's important to do it in both scenarios.
Yeah.
Of course, if you can see visibly a child is upset because they've given the ball away 3 times in a row, then finding that bit of praise that may just lift their spirits and build a bit of confidence in them. But then also, if they seem happy as Larry, they don't really care that they've given the ball away 3 times. I think that just reinforcing the fact that it's okay, it's all right to make mistakes. These are kids at the end of the day. This is not a match on a Saturday afternoon. It's not for a Premier League title. It's for fun and enjoyment and development. And offering that positive praise, I think, is really important. I think it's just then balancing that off, and maybe that's where you do in the moment feedback and then post game feedback. So you've got an opportunity to offer those bits in the moment that build confidence and make sure that children don't lose confidence and self-esteem in those situations. But then maybe afterwards say, well, actually, where you gave it away a couple of times in the midfield, one of the reasons was you didn't check your shoulder. But that feedback from the sideline, sometimes from a parent or a coach, might be check your shoulder, like and have a go at them. Yeah. Suddenly then confidence levels go down, the whole game goes to pot, and it's like, well, what's the point in giving that feedback in the moment? For an 8-year-old, that feedback might be best off.
Do you think any sort of feedback like that, obviously praise is fantastic, but when you're looking at developmental feedback and whatnot, does it ever work in the moment?
I think it can, for children of an ability and an age that are able to take on board that feedback in the moment and do something about it quickly. So if it is an instruction from the sideline to a 12-year-old, make sure you check your shoulder, then next time the ball comes into them, they check their shoulder and they take the first touch in the right direction. So I think that it can, but for particularly young age groups, John, I don't think so.
I think it has to be something that they can change. So, like in a game, if you're going to give an instructions, it might be like changing where you're playing on the pitch. So if you're always on the touchline, you want them to come in a little bit because that's where they'll get more success in receiving the ball. But like when it's a technical thing, ultimately the exact same situation isn't going to happen again with the players around them in the exact same positions and places. So I think if it's more of a thing that they can change in the moment, whether it be position, maybe checking their shoulder in general to support them, then I think it can.
Well, fantastic points, guys. Let's go on. Question 3.
Question 3.
You're coaching a group with huge differences in their physicality. How do you manage this, Johnny Martin?
One thing that I would do is try and group the children together based on their physicality.
Nice.
James?
I would embrace the differences and use it as a development opportunity.
I like yours better, so you're the winner of this question. Tell us a little bit more though.
So there's quite an interesting one, because your point is that actually I assume that you'd then put maybe you got 2 particularly small children for their age and put them together, 2 bigger boys or girls or whatever and put them together.
I think it's grouping in general, not stealing. Yeah. I steal the point back, but
too late.
I think around, depending on the topic that you're working on, being clever with the way in which you group the children. So maybe at times putting the 2 strongest players together, but then also doing the other version of that and putting the strongest and the smallest together and seeing how they compete.
So that was my point. So what I would do is, I think there's huge opportunity. Sometimes you might go, right, we need to put the children in pairs, and you're going, right, there's the two best players, let's put them together. Those two are really fast. Those two are bigger than the rest, let's put them together. But actually, there's huge benefits to having the smallest and the tallest in the same pair working together. There's huge benefits to having someone that's a brilliant 1v1 attacker versus a 1v1 defender, and actually put them together in a pair. So I think there's, again, the skill of the coach is adapting, isn't it to the environment, and there'll be times where it just makes sense, and it comes back to a little bit like the last question. We don't want to knock anyone's confidence. So if you've got a really particularly strong player and a really someone who's just starting out who's particularly struggling or within the session, then putting those two children together could be a bit of a disaster for that younger player's confidence, or the one who's struggling's confidence. But there may be a situation where actually the stronger player could help.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. I think embracing it is really important, and ultimately it does happen, doesn't it? You will have that different physicality within a group.
Just as importantly, particularly in grassroots coaching, in terms of the outcomes are much more important socially than technically. So if you've just got a group of players and there's two big ones, they're always together, the little one, they don't get that opportunity within that session, within that game to mix socially.
Socially is a really interesting one, because when we think straight away, where does your mind go when you say about huge variances in like physicality, but then it goes beyond physicality, doesn't it? Because if you then got a really shy child with a really outgoing personality, actually for 2 weeks running, pairing those two children up might really help the child that's feeling a bit shy and a bit nervous by putting them with the child that's like really brings out their confidence. So it goes beyond physicality. I think there's some real benefits, and I think the key is to mix it up, to not... it also sends some kind of potentially negative messages to the children. If it's, I always put Luke and Johnny together in the session because they're the best two players.
Thank you very much.
For example, then the message, the signal that gives to the rest of the group is the coach thinks they're the best two players. Whereas if I do that 1 week, but then the next week I mix it up and it seems more varied, one, there's huge benefits to the variation of that and getting to work with different children, social benefits, building confidence, learning from each other, struggling, doing well, being the better player, being the weaker player, but also the fact that it doesn't signal to the children that actually this is what you think about them.
Yeah. The biggest thing is to have thought behind it. So if there's a plan to what you're doing, I'm going to group these two together today because they need to challenge each other physically, then that's what we're going to go for. But you then also must think about what you've done last week to make sure you don't have that continued theme. And actually, as you then work on the next topic, it's who can I put together to then help them across all the different four corners of their game.
And it's something that's, in certain age groups, it's always going to happen, isn't it? There's always going to have that huge difference within physicality, the way children grow at different times. So have you got any top tips, the master coach, Johnny Martin, in terms of the grassroots? A lot of people coaching, I'm sure, are having these sort of challenges with the difference in physicality.
I think the biggest thing is thinking about the outcomes of the session and what you're trying to achieve within that session. So if it is you're working on dribbling and you have got the differences in physicality, then it's trying to plan your session with that in mind and thinking about how you're then going to group it. So I think it just comes down to a bit of forward planning with making sure that you've got the outcomes of the session in mind, you're then pairing and grouping people together appropriately to get those outcomes.
Great stuff. On to question 4.
Let's do it.
You've got children in the group that are shy and others that are supremely confident. What do you do, John?
Ooh.
Without sounding like a broken record.
Challenges?
Coach through and set challenges through the children.
Challenges again.
Through the children.
Through the children.
Okay. I like that.
James?
I would focus on the warm welcome within the session, so just making sure they feel really comfortable within the first literally 30 seconds when they arrive, so they're not shy leading into the rest of the session.
I like both of them. I'm going to go with Johnny as a winner of that question, because I want to hear a little bit more about this.
Cool. So the thought process is, if you've got maybe a child that is a little bit shy and not as confident as others within the group, what you can do is, when you're about to progress the session, what you might be able to then do is set them at that challenge first. So doing our gates game that we referenced earlier on, you might then progress the session, so then they have to use their weak foot only. So if you set that challenge individually to the child that's shy, first of all, while the rest of the session's going on, and then when you progress it and introduce it to the whole group, what you can then actually do is get that shy child to then demonstrate the challenge for the rest of the group to then build their confidence. I know what you might be thinking, what if they're not confident enough to do that in front of the rest of the group? What you can then do is, rather than getting them to show it, what you can then try and do is build them up, build their confidence and go, James was just doing something brilliant, he was using his weak foot, so we're all going to do that challenge now. So trying to coach through the children, big those shy children up and try and
I love that. What you're doing is you're just creating an environment where you're almost sort of guaranteeing success for that child. So it's, and I think in that instance, what I would do as well to add to that is then check in with them to see whether they're happy. So it might be like, right, Johnny, like, what when you do go for all the gates, do this. And they're like, could you demonstrate that to the group? That was amazing. And then if they feel like their confidence is building, then the coaches just said, I'm amazing. I'd love you to show that to the rest of the group. Then you're giving them the platform to really excel.
I think the most important thing as a coach is to understand the children, whoever you're coaching. Like, as a kid, believe it or not, I was incredibly shy, and I used to hate it when the coach would sort of make a deal of that and say you need to like that sort of thing. So I think all children, all people develop at their own rate, and obviously what you do in the way that you explain how to do it that way is the best possible way for them. But I think without understanding the child and knowing how they're going to develop, what they're going to be comfortable or not comfortable with all kids, regardless of they're shy or not, is the most important thing.
I think it's also like for those most confident children as well, you can do that challenge or something similar. I think it's almost like not neglecting those that are supremely confident and just trying to then increase the confidence in the children that are shy, but actually then putting those most confident children in different positions and having them demo to the rest of the group to try and test them and stretch them even further. So I think it's trying to think about the whole spectrum of that.
Yeah, I think like in terms of, when you've got kids there, and it's like we said in the last question, you're always going to have children at different places, socially, psychologically. Some are going to be supremely confident, but it is about every child having a positive experience, isn't it? And not just focusing on, as we spoke about at the start, the perceived best player or the biggest player, the quietest player, the noisiest player. It's about everyone having a good experience. But great points. We're on to the last question. I think it's 2-2 as well.
Unbelievable.
Perfect.
Final question, guys. It is the decider, and it is a biggie. You ready for it?
Ready.
You've got a big match against a team that are top of the league with a mixed ability group. How do you manage that, James?
Equal playing time.
John?
I mean, it's hard to go with anything else than that. I would go for equal playing time, however, with a twist.
That's the point for me then,
Challenge.
With a twist, I would mix the teams up. So I'd have some stronger players, maybe for one half, and some maybe less confident and weaker players, perceived weaker players within the team. In that same half, and then switch it around. So I wouldn't
start with your strongest
team and then change it. Yeah,
I like that. I'm going to have to go with James because you just copied James.
Absolutely, fair enough.
So James,
I just think it's probably one of the biggest failings in grassroots football. Right? It's everyone's all about equal playing time. Everyone got equal playing time here. Apart from we've got a big match at the weekend or we've got a cup final, we need to then get rid of our philosophy entirely and then play all the best players and leave everyone else on the sidelines. It's just the wrong message at the wrong time, and I think it's one of the biggest problems in grassroots football. Children are there to enjoy themselves, be part of something, to make friends, to have fun, to build confidence. And on that last point, what bigger knock to your confidence is we all get equal playing time, and then suddenly on the day where there's a important game, how important is it? I don't know. But then the rules get ripped up.
So it is then against, using that sort of real life scenario, say it is against top of the league and they're smashing everyone every single week and it's like 10, 12, 13-0. Of course, we say about equal playing time, which I completely agree. hence why I copied your answer. How do you try and then manage that to make sure that it isn't then a drubbing and the children then do come off with really not confidence and having not enjoyed their experience?
Probably speaking with the opposition team coach before the game and just saying, look, last time we played it was 10-0.
Yeah.
Let's try and, you're going to win the game. Let's try and make this a good experience for everyone. How do you think we can manage that? And that will depend on, whatever it might be. There's a possibility they pull a player and make it, or give you, or better than that, give you an extra player to allow it to be a bit more of an equal game. Of course, it then depends on the age group, because at under 14s, can you play 12 versus 11? Maybe not. So there's a few issues in there, but I think ultimately it's up to you as a football coach to create the environment, and then that takes a little bit of collaboration with other football coaches. The challenge to that is then that scenario could play out where I go to Luke, look, last time you beat us 10-0, mate, can you help us out a little bit here? Don't want these boys and girls to be upset come the end of the fixture, and it's like, no, absolutely not. We're here to win the league and we need the best possible goal difference.
Yeah.
And then I think unfortunately that would probably happen.
I think so too, especially with you.
I was like, no, we're not going to weaken the team. Do you understand why coaches do this? Not why they do it. So why they're playing top of the league, so they're going to play predominantly their perceived strongest players.
The top of head answer is ego.
Yeah.
Is that I want my team to win. Taking it down a level and being less critical of the coach, maybe want my team to not get thrashed this week, and I don't want them to lose their confidence. But ultimately, it's because they want to win.
And then, do you think the whole sort of ethos of not like the whole of it, but there's so much grassroots football now, all even around the youngest ages, where it is all set about winning? I mean, I speak to a huge amount of grassroots coaches on a daily basis, and they'll talk about the challenges of being a grassroots coach, and the biggest challenges they tend to have is parents.
Yeah.
Complaining about their selection policy, about who's playing minutes, and it just gets to a point where you wonder where it's gone wrong to a certain extent.
I mean, if I was coaching grassroots football now, and I did back in the day, but if I was doing it now, I would literally say, here's what we're going to do in every game. Everyone's going to get equal playing time. The starting team changes every single week. Each child will start X amount of games, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Full stop. That does not change. Doesn't matter what the game is, who it's against, and that's what we do.
That's so important to get the buy-in from the parents at the outset, because when you then change and deviate from that, that's probably when the problems then come.
That's when people get upset. Isn't it?
So ultimately, if you set your stall out from the start, I've got one little tip, just from when actually working in academy football. We used to go on tours, and little old Cambridge at the time versus some pretty big European giants against Bayern Munich, and ultimately you wanted to try and support the children so they didn't get a thrashing. I think that probably is something quite real in grassroots football. I agree, some want to win, some also don't want to lose dramatically because it affects the children's confidence. So one of my top tips is always to play your stronger players at the back. I think coaches at times I've seen and watched grassroots football, they tend to play their better players, their star players up front, or in cam as the kids like to call it. But actually I think playing them in defence is a way in which you can try and stop the goals coming in and try and restrict that. So I think when you are playing against top of the league, definitely have mixed abilities, and what I said earlier on around having stronger and weaker players in the same team and changing the halves over, but I think where you can, have the stronger players further back to then protect the goalie and protect that.
Do you think it's a bad thing sometimes to get beat by a number of goals? I think the greatest lessons are learned from challenge when stuff like that happens, like every now and again, and you do get a good beating from...
It's about frequency, isn't it? If that's happening 5, 6, 7 times a season, or 1 in 3 games, then it's really tough and quite demoralising. It might end up with a child stopping playing football because they're just not enjoying it. I think if there's a couple of games a season where there's a really talented team and you get beat 6-0, then I think there's an opportunity to go, cool, why? What are they good at that or better at than us, and how can we learn from that? So yeah, it just comes down to frequency. And there's some great stuff that goes on within Grassroots. With that, there's leagues in the country now where it gets divided almost partway through the season, and the top half of the league then play each other, and the bottom half of the league then play each other, and it makes for a more level playing field. So those kind of problems are being addressed, which is great. But you're always going to have the challenge. There's always going to be, there's a group of children playing against each other. One's better than the other, and how does it make them all feel? And I think there's loads more questions, aren't there, then about how we then challenge the ones that are winning 6-0. Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
You know, if they win 6-0, 7-0, 8-0 every week, but maybe for another podcast.
And on to the final part of today's podcast, the new feature. I think it will turn into everyone's favourite, and it is Football Fun Fact with me, Luke Chadwick.
Oh, this sounds fantastic.
So today's fun fact, I don't know if it's that much fun, but and I've spoken about it many times before, so a lot of people might know, but I think I am the only footballer in football history to have scored in the Premier League, the Championship, League One, League Two, the National League, the Belgian First Division, the Belgian Second Division, the FA Cup, and the League Cup. Fact, I think.
That is a great fact.
It's very good.
Fact, I think, is brilliant.
I don't think anyone else has done
I think the Belgium league probably...
Exactly, yeah. It takes a bit left field and probably just...
Is there any of those that you scored like one goal in, so therefore if you hadn't scored that goal it wouldn't be a fact? Any of those leagues?
No, I think there was more than one in all of them.
Okay, cool. Just thinking like,
Skinnier teeth, yeah.
if you hadn't scored that goal in the Belgian Second Division, I'm sure you scored loads of goals.
It's got my only career hat-trick in the Belgian Second.
Which
You should have saved that fact for next time.
And you always say that your favourite goal was actually for Cambridge, right? And was that in the National League?
That was in the National League, against Southport. That was the dream come true. As a 7-year-old fantasising about scoring for Cambridge, and then when I was 33 or 34, slightly balding man, completely bald now, but that was the moment that it happened at the Abbey Stadium. A great moment.
I think I might have been there. I've been there to witness it. Were you there?
I don't think I was.
No. Great goal.
Thank you very much. And that concludes today's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to catching up with you really soon.